I'm Logan Crawford, and right now on Spotlight, I'm delighted to introduce you to a masterful storyteller by the name of Arfer Apple. He captivates readers with two distinct yet gripping tales. In a dark secret, he delves into the resilience of a suspended police inspector, battling both a personal health crisis and profound loss. While in The Extraordinary Life of Crime, he showcases the vast spectrum of human nature in 28 unique crime narratives. We're delighted to have this very talented author join us here today on Spotlight. We thank the team at Prime 7 Media for helping us put him in the spotlight today. And we ask viewers like you to support writers like him by subscribing to our channel. Arfer, thank you so much for joining us here today on Spotlight.
Thanks very much, Logan. I live in a place called Coconut Grove, it's just outside Darwin. On a Saturday, I run a bookstall at the local market where you sell books for self-publishing authors. I've actually written 11 books in total, but we're only going to talk about the last 5 today because they're the most important ones. The main book we're going to talk about is The Dark Secret, which is actually a trilogy. I started writing this on my second week of chemo. I suffered from leukemia, and I didn't expect to go into hospital so quickly. But I met the specialist team, and they said, "You can come in tomorrow. Okay, check in." So The Dark Secret is about a female. I've got the book here. It's about a female inspector set in Darwin, and she has a real rough time. Herself, she ends up with breast cancer. She has to have her breast removed, and then after that, all she wants is a job back. But it's almost a year before she's back on her feet, and she's living with her parents again. She has 3 children. The day she walked out of hospital, she got a divorce paper. So the first few pages are really down in the dumps, but she has a fighting spirit, and that is the main thing about her. So her mentor is now Commissioner of Police. He's a bit of a rogue himself and a womanizer. So she goes back to him to see him, and all she wants is an inspector's position back and the money they owed her because they didn't pay her for a year. So there she is. He said, "You can come back, but not as an inspector. I want you to come back as chief of detectives. I want you to shake the man tree." And get the detective force into action because they've been a bit slacking. So she has our old team there, male and female, and also multicultural with many First Nations people. Some people call them Aboriginal. We now call them First Nation people, as people in the story who have positions, and this is based on the Darwin police force. We see lots of Aboriginal First Nation people around, and they do a splendid job. The reason they do that is because there's a lot of people in the Aboriginal world, First Nation world, who don't speak good English, so it's good to have an interpreter. With my books, every chapter is a different story. It is only connected by the main characters, and through the book, she takes on all sorts of crimes, mainly to do with drugs. There's a big drug problem, like Darwin and any other city in the world, and there she is. She takes it on. The other thing about her is she's a bit of an Annie Oakley. If you follow my meaning, there she is. What you don't want to do is to point a gun at her. If you do, you better pull the trigger, because she's a real crack shot with a gun, and she always shoots the person right between the eyes. She has a habit of this. So slowly, she gets her life together. She pays back her parents. She moves in a flat on her own, and then eventually she moves out to the country. She gets herself a dog, tries to set up a normal lifestyle, and then goes after all the different crimes around Darwin. A lot of the local area. It's very lush and green here. Even in the dry season, without any rain, there's sprinklers going everywhere. She slowly climbs the ranks in the Dark Secret too. She's finally offered the job as assistant police commissioner, but she doesn't want that. She wants to go back on what she calls ground level. She wants to be with her team, what she has built up over the last year or so, and go after these bad people. There are places within it where they use tactical police and all the mod cons, especially with the phone tapping. There's a program called Hunted here. We're on the second series. I think there's one in America and one in the UK. A lot of the things what the actual people who were being hunted were caught out with by using their mobile phones. And this is something she gets the team to track anyone who connects one of the, you could call them the bad guys. So yeah, so I didn't intend to write Dark Secret 2, but after I finished writing Dark Secret 1, well, it took me about 4 months, and then I hadn't even published Dark Secret 1, and I started writing Dark Secret 2 because I left the end of the book, the story, open. It does finish in a climax, but then she takes 3 months off, gets a new life settled, and Dark Secret 2 kicks off. The main thing about all of this that there is corruption, not only in the actual police she's dealing with, but in other sections of the police group. So she also goes after what you call the bad cops. We all read about them. Sometimes it's covered up. The main thing is that on the front cover, it's a female. She's looking through the wall. I was told a few people at the market of all strange places there. How did I feel about writing a story through the eyes of a female? And I didn't really think about that, but they seemed to think there was some difference in it. I just want, and then eventually I moved into Dark Secret 3, where she does take up the position as a assistant police commissioner, and but she still keeps her feet on the ground. She still goes out with friends, loyal supporters, and the actual crimes, they actually get bigger, and there's more drugs coming to Darwin, and there's kidnapping, there's pedophiles are on the loose. So it's the whole range of, you've only got to pick up the paper in any country in the world today, and you'll find that these crimes are going on. The reason I based it in Darwin was because I wanted to use the landscape and the actual communities around Darwin itself. I have to tell you something that was completely different. Going back to the market stall, I'm there about 7 hours every Saturday, and the first hour or so I play music, something like Tom Petty or REM or someone like that. But then I put on my Beatle USB, and many times, and I could not have planned this, I look up and there's 6 or 7, and we call them grey nomads. They're the people with big 4-wheel drives and caravans, and they drive all the way up Stewart Highway in convoys, about 40 miles an hour. Anyway, their favourite songs are Octopus's Garden and Yellow Submarine and With a Little Help from My Friends. And I looked up there, and there they were. Some of these people I've connected, but a lot of them are complete strangers, and they're all singing I Like to Be Under the Sea and Octopus's Garden. Now, you couldn't create this. And behind them, there's a backup choir. So the security there come charging up to me and said to me, so what's going on? I said, oh, it's the grey nomad Beatle choir. And he said, God Almighty. And as far as you can see, there's people, and they're all singing. And often when they walk past and look at if they start looking at the books, they're actually singing the song what is on the actual sound system. While they look at my books, and I've been told many times, not only about my hat, but also I'm showing my age. but it's good to connect to people, and it does. And most of them would know all the Beatles songs. You can tell by the way they're acting. Yeah. So that's the Dark Secret trilogy, and I'm very proud of it. It's one of my favourite connection with books, and the female herself. I don't know how to say it. My sister had breast cancer, and I didn't realise that some of the qualities of this leading figure is a reflection of my sister, because she grew up with two older brothers, and she would stand her ground no matter what. So I think there's some of her in there, although it wasn't intentionally, and that is something I've only realised over the last couple of months, looking at the actual figure herself. Because sometimes I just open it up when I'm at the bookstore, it goes quiet. I just open a different book and start reading it. I say to myself, "Who the hell wrote this? Where did this come from?" You know, because when I write my books, I don't plan them. I handwrite. So I just sit down, and some days I might write 12, 15, maybe 20 pages, but the chapters aren't, and the direction of the story is not planned. It's whatever comes in my head. I use most probably you've never heard of him. A guy called Dustin Tebbit. He's a very folky singer, uses synthesizers, and he plays the mood music. I call it mood because he puts me in the mood for writing, and it's very faint in the background when I'm writing, and that's how I create the books. I watch a lot of English crime on television. The American crime, I'm not knocking it. It's pretty good. I used to like CSI and Law and Order back in the days, but at the moment, my biggest fan is of Vera. That's a middle-aged lady who's a chief inspector in rural Yorkshire. That's in the Midlands. In that's type of thing, because the people in that TV series are very similar to the people in the books. These are not super police, you know. Mind you, there's one or two of them who are, but they're just everyday people, just earning a living. And the story, the way it twists around, and eventually it comes out to a conclusion. The person who drives the main character around, Joni Mitchell, she's 5'4". She's First Nation person. She's a driver and also a bodyguard. She's not the person you want to wave your arms at, even if you are 6'4". Take a step back, because in a very few moments after you've swung the first hit and you've actually missed her, you're going to go down on your knees and you are going to be feeling your groin, because she wears steel cap boots, and that's the first thing she does is take them out. And then they normally say, "Get this bitch off of me." I mean, she's only 5'4", you know, but she's one of the funny characters. And later in the book, she gets married and she has a baby herself, but she does come back towards the end of the story. The other book I like to talk about is The Extraordinary Life of Crime. Now, the reason I wrote this, excuse me, was that I met many people who like to read books, but you don't have to go read the whole book before you find out who done it. So that's why in my type of writing, I have a different chapter for every story. They are linked by the main characters, and sometimes the story carries over, or it comes back into the light force back, and in 3 or 4 chapters later. This is 28 unrelated stories in crime, and also all the characters in it are unrelated. It was just this guy said, I like to read 20 or 30 pages every night I go to bed. And then I was looking, I thought, well, I can do that. I can write a short story, entertaining, someone to read when they go to bed at night. This book, The Extraordinary Life of Crime, has been the most popular book out of all my books, even The Dark Secret, on the stall. I judge my books by what sells on the stall, not by what, because you find my books on Amazon and Barnes and Noble. And then I decided I'm going to write another one. I'm a glutton for punishment. I say, that's it, I'm not going to write anymore, I'm going to take it easy. I'm just going to, what am I going to do? Am I going to sit around watching television? I'm not really into sports, and I've seen all the pubs I want to. I used to own a couple of pubs in Brighton back in the early 90s. So I know about pubs, and at the end of the day, because of my medical condition, I don't drink out. I have a case of beer at Christmas and a case of beer on my birthday. Now, this is a man who used to be an executive chef, and I could tell you I would drink around 20 beers every night when I finished work, not during work, when I used to finish work. It's my way of unwinding. And of course, it didn't help my weight back in the days. So I've lost a fair bit of weight since I've given up drinking. So there we go.
Congratulations. That's awesome. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. I didn't. I'm one of these people. You see, I live alone, and I can go 3 or 4 days without seeing anybody. I have a connection on the actual internet, and I actually run my biggest love is our music. I'm connected with three different websites. All Music is Q, what covers everything, and we've got the 70s and the 80s music, which is mainly the old Tamla Motown soul music and the start of heavy metal. And then we've got 40s or more. It's music before 1950, World War II music. My grandparents used to have a pub, and upstairs in their lounge, we also had a piano. And many times when people used to visit us, my grandma or grandfather used to get on the old piano, and I was only knee-high to a grasshopper back in them days, but I knew the words to all the songs. They're all Bud Flanagan and people like this, and Vera Lynn, great artists in their own right, but their music has lived on where they passed away some decades ago. So what else can I tell you? My new friend, Logan.
Well, it's so good to see it. I enjoyed your stories about, the extraordinary life of crime and Dark Secret. Have you ever thought about Dark Secret perhaps becoming a series or becoming a movie?
I can answer that for you. Dark Secret, it's a trilogy. I like to get them republished. With a publisher who's going to pay me, not me pay them. It would make. Well, you could do 3 films, but you could make two good movies out of it. Because once you get into the first one, they'll be hunting for the second one. The same with the Extraordinary Life of Crime. You could run one of these shows where the actors are different every time because it's a different story, a different type of crime. There, there's a lot of LBQT mentioned and the people, and I'm not giving them a big plug, but we have to come to realise that these people are part of our lives now. They've all come out in the open, and we should respect them. And that's why, with my writing, I include them in some of the stories, and even some of the police officers themselves are living in same-sex marriages and things like this. It's a sign of the times. You have to move with the times. I do like to read, and not very often, but I normally wait from them to turn the book into a film. Last books I read was, going back now, show my age, 1970. I read The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings several times.
Yeah.
And they were the last books I read, because when I was working as a chef, you didn't really get much time. And on your day off, all you wanted to do was just sit in a pub and drink, or go to the movies. That was my weekly thing. I used to go and see a couple of movies. I used to go up to London on the train and walk around Piccadilly, and I'd look in the evening paper and find out what films were showing. I did enjoy the Godfather movies. I didn't like the end of Godfather 3, when he was sitting alone in that chair. I don't know what I would have done to finish off that film, but I really enjoyed it. And they were basically, although there was a lot of killing, it was all about family life and sticking together. And this is something I reflect in my books, that the people around the main character are very loyal to her, and she's also loyal to them, and they stick together, and that's how they overcome the crimes of today.
And she's such a strong female character. She's going through a health crisis and everything, yet she's still able to pursue her career, still able to contribute. I'd imagine for yourself, there was kind of a parallel there. You were sick at the time when you were writing this. You were envisioning getting better and getting back, right?
Yes, I had retired then. I was 67, late 66, 67, when I started the actual chemo. This book, The Strength That Lies Within, I know we weren't going to talk about it, but this was released on the Sunday. There was a place called the Railway Club here, and people would get up and stand and talk. They'd read poetry. Sometimes they would sing. It was just a thing once a month on a Sunday, and I released that there. There 100 people showed up there, so that was quite good. The Strength That Lies Within is about believing in yourself, and it's got nothing to do with cancer or nothing like that. But he gets demoted. He gets sent down into the basement, into the file room, and he believes that he was innocent. After 2 years, they decide that they're going to bring him back up because they need him. He was such a good policeman. The main thing about that book is The Strength That Lies Within. Started as a poem, and I used to go to cancer meetings, but also where people would get up and talk about it, what they've been through, what they're going through, and we would sell things. We raise money for the day. So that's where it came from, The Strength That Lies Within. Although I adapted for him, he had a hard life, just like the female in there. I don't know why all my characters have hard lives. In the actual books of Restoring the Life of Crime, a lot of those stories in there, not from the police point of view. There's a couple in there from these 4 guys. They had robbed an armoured truck 4 years before. So they decided that they're going to do it again. So it's the story through their eyes. Now, the police know they did it. They know they did it, but the police can't prove it. And it's the pursuit of the police after them what became interesting. They actually live on a surf beach. They teach people how to surf. They make surfboards. Very Australian. And it's based down in Melbourne, because I lived in Melbourne for 11 years before I started to travel, and eventually I went across to the Kimberleys, to Fitzroy Crossing, Halls Creek, and then eventually I came up into Darwin about 20 years ago. I used to work, as I said, as an executive chef, and a lot of characters I've met along the way, I've based in my book. I haven't used their names or nothing like that, but they're just people. I'm one of these people. You can go and sit in I can go and sit in the pub, and I guarantee people will come over and start talking to me. I don't know why. Not that I'm going to buy them a drink, but it's just I look approachable. It's the same. It's the same at the market. The kids are fascinated by me wearing my hat. And also, I must explain the name of Arfer Apple. That's my Apple logo. Okay, it's with a chunk out because people say, "Oh, you can't use the word Apple because of the computers." But the name Arfer, now that comes from Arthur Daly from Minder. You must remember Minder.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
Terence, Dave, put it on the slate. And do you know that famous saying from his put it on the slate? That went through all the pubs in England. Yeah, I mean, you got a slate. What are you talking about? Oh, just make a note in the book and I'll pay you later. They're imitating Arthur Day, one of these classic people who never really got up to anything really bad. It was just the way he was projected.
Arthur,
so
you mentioned a surprise. Do you want to do your surprise right
yes.
now? Because that would be great before this show's over.
Yeah.
We've been talking to Arfer Apple. He is a master storyteller who has written a number of books, including A Dark Secret, which tells a tale of a police investigator who undergoes a difficult health crisis, but she's able to prevail, and a collection of 28 different short stories in the book, The Extraordinary Life of Crime. And now, there's the surprise. Wow.
I'd like to introduce you to Charlie Cockatoo. He's my best friend and also is my manager. Yeah, my Charlie's. Now, this is. Oh, I know you're going to say hello, but listen, this is Logan. I told you we were going to speak to him. Hey, put your comb down, all right? Okay.
Hello.
Yes, I know.
Hello, Johnny. How are you?
Charlie, this is him on the book, on the front cover.
Wonderful.
The reason I done that, because when I was writing the book, he used to sit on my shoulder the whole time. Yeah, we're going to have eggy toasties. He calls food eggy toasties. And you say hello, Charlie. Yes, that's right. We go to yes. We go see the birdies. Not now because it's dark outside. We see them in the morning. The bottom of his cage every day I take outside and I throw it out there, and the birds come down. Yes. Yeah, I know my Charlies. I can understand him, but some people can't.
I can understand him. That's great. I like you have matching hats. You've got your hat with the feather. He's got his hat with the feather.
These come from him.
Yep.
He sheds one or two a year. So that's how he did. What's the matter now? Hey? Yeah. So in about 3 months' time, the cockies will return to the tall trees, and they come down. About 30 or 40 of them every day, and they clean up all his food he doesn't eat. Sometimes I cut up loaves of bread and throws it down. But he is fascinated by him.
Amazing.
He actually it was in his big cage in the bathroom, but apart from at night when he's sleeping and when I go out of that property, the rest of the time he flies around in the front lounge,
Amazing.
Yeah. Well, we go see the birdies in the morning, and I go shopping. All right. I have to tell him where I'm going. Yes. I tell him I'm going to go shopping because I've got to buy his food. I spend more on him on food than I do myself because he's vegetarian. See, the only difference is that he eats more seeds than me. That's the only difference. We eat off the same plate, We have diced fruit and raw oats. Yes, I know.
Amazing,
And,
amazing.
And then for lunch every day, I make an omelette-based thing with spinach. I've discovered that he loves fresh spinach in his food. So we normally have an omelette with some tuna in, or just vegetables. But he's mad on this.
Does the Kentucky Fried Chicken make him hungry as well?
He's vegetarian. I would never be so cruel to give him a piece of chicken. Exactly. I know people do, and they also give them beer to get them drunk, things like that. But no, he's not a church goer. He's not Catholic. Are you, Charlie? Hey, you're not Catholic. We look at me. I know it's my hat. He's weary of the hat.
He's a beautiful bird. Arfer, can he say bye-bye? We're at the end of the show. We only have a few seconds left.
Okay.
Can he say bye-bye?
Yes.
Okay.
We're going to say goodbye.
Thanks so much to Johnny the Cockatoo and to Arfer Apple, both amazing characters. There he goes. You know what he just said? He just said, I'm Logan Crawford, thanking you for your time this time. Until next time on Spotlight. Johnny, you got anything to say?
Yes. Yes.